Today I have two really wonderful special guests. We're going to be talking about pitching the press. My name is Gina Moccio, and I'm the founder of Babe Crafted. I would love if you two ladies could introduce yourselves and tell us about what you do.
Aubrey?
Oh, hi everyone. I'm Aubrey Jackson. I'm a local news anchor and influencer. My background is in broadcast, and I have a huge passion for social media and digital marketing.
Hi, everybody. I'm Danielle Jackson, and I own Stride Media Group, which is a public relations agency primarily serving women-owned businesses, minority-owned businesses, and any company that is passionate about diversity.
Love that. And this is a Facebook Live interview made in heaven, because I feel like we have the perfect combination of passions and expertise to really be able to give entrepreneurs a full picture of how they can best pitch the press their story. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. So the first thing I want to ask you is, so what are your first thoughts that come to mind when you hear the words pitch the press?
I think that the general image sometimes is of people clamoring at a reporter's door saying like, please listen to this pitch, listen to this story. So I think that's like maybe the idea or the visual that a lot of people get when they think pitching the press. I know better than that, but I know that that's probably like a common image, is people clamoring at the email inbox or the door or the telephone of a reporter, someone like Aubrey, and hoping to get their story heard.
Yeah, when I think pitch the press, I kind of think that it's a little outdated. And I'll only say outdated because I think it should more so be pitch the relationship, something relational. Because pitch the press sounds so transactional that I feel like the press and PR is so close knit when it comes to like the business side of things. It doesn't really have to be a matter of pitching. It's more so about knowing your audience, knowing the brand messaging, and building that relationship.
I really love that, because I feel like pitch the press, like, what you were saying, Danielle, it really does come off like, contacting people to try to see like who can pick this up, who will write about me, like it's very like, who will do this thing for me? And I like what you had to say, Aubrey, about, okay, well, how can I find like the right reporter? Like, how can I see, you want to make sure that he or she is actually a good fit for what you're pitching. Have either of you seen the movie Joy with Jennifer Lawrence about Joy Mangano?
Yes.
I haven't. It's on my list, but no.
Yeah. Remember that scene? Oh my gosh, Danielle. Well, you can borrow it. I have it on TV.
Right. You'll love it.
But so that scene in the movie where, so she has this new mop product that she's getting on, I believe it was QVC, was HSN at the very beginning. And so they have the wrong personality demoing this mop, and he doesn't know how to use it, and he doesn't care about it. And you just never want, you don't want to think of it in like that old school way of like, who can I get to show this product or service off? Like, you want to make sure it's like a mutual kind of relationship. So I really appreciate what you both had to say there. Awesome. So I think that leads us really well into misconceptions. So I would love to talk about misconceptions on your end, Danielle, as what people kind of misconstrue a publicist to be about, and on Aubrey, on your end about being a reporter and journalist.
Okay, so one stereotype of publicists, and this is kind of old school, so hopefully we're opening our minds a little bit, but the idea of the shark who's willing to spin the story any way they can to try to get some traction, and even if that means lying and doing things underhanded and sneaking into these places to get things done, I think that is the idea of a publicist. I try, especially like when we do workshops or whenever we talk to clients, we can tell right away when people kind of come in and they have that idea based on some of the questions and things they say to us. And sometimes we have to make it very clear from the beginning. There's definitely like an education component to help them see that's not what we do. And then we explain what we do and then say, if you're willing to sign up for that, that's how we operate. But as far as like the cold calls to try to get things pitched, or, you know, and if I'm representing my client, I'm willing to do anything to get them placed, is just something we just don't do. But I do think that that's a common misconception of the industry.
Yeah, on the journalism side of things, especially as an on-air talent, I think the biggest misconception is that we're talking to you and not with you. And the way that the landscape is changing in media, the conversation has to be a back and forth. It's just the way things are. Social media has completely changed the game when it comes to how we consume media, where we consume media, and what is important to us. A lot of our consumers, the audience, is really leading the charge in what we find important, what's going to trend, what is seen as valuable information. And honestly, they're kind of dictating where the conversation goes, especially if we're talking about something viral. So gone are the days that, I'm just here to sit and tell you what's happening at 5, 6, and 11. That's so far from the case. It's really that relationship. It's a back and forth. It's as if I am your 5, 6, and 11 p.m. best friend.
That's good. That's good.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, the interesting thing about with press is something that I find to be really similar with like anything that's new to you. If you've never planned an event before, if you've never spoken to a reporter before, like there are just going to be a lot of blind spots. But seeing that reporter as like a person with interests and needs as well is going to be your best friend. I know, like Danielle, obviously, you're working with clients whose missions and businesses you believe in,
right.
Because that is how you and your co-founder have started your business. So you're not only are you working with people who you believe in, but you're going to bring those stories to people who they're actually a good fit for.
Right.
So it's a lot of like curation, so I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I would love to talk about some do's and don'ts. I'm sure that Danielle, on your end, you get a lot of interesting questions, from clients because they've never done this before. And Aubrey, I'm sure you get a lot of interesting like DMs and emails because there's so much, right, information that can be shared to just say, okay, well, here's what the process is really like. Here's what I'm actually looking for. Like, I'm not looking for you to send me an email with 80 photos attached and like your entire life story. So if you could share like some do's and don'ts that you think are best practices.
Aubrey, do you want to begin? Okay.
Yeah.
I would say, because I could do a whole thing on this, but 2 that jump out as the most critical, in my opinion, would be to do your homework. So I think sometimes we want to jump right in, but are you pitching the right person? Are you pitching the right outlet? Have you done the homework to see if it's something that they cover? Are you going to waste your time by pitching it to them and then they can't even use it because that's not their beat? So I would definitely say you cannot jump right in, even though you're anxious to just shoot it out there. Take your time, do your homework. I mean, sometimes even as far as what might be best. So if they report at a certain time, then is it ideal to try to expect a response at that time? So number 1, I would say is do your homework. And the second would kind of go off of what Aubrey was saying a little bit earlier about relationship. And I guess this pairs well with do your homework, but build a relationship. And sometimes when we lead workshops or talking to people who want to learn how to do it themselves, they want to know the quick tips. So they're like, okay, so what's the behind the scenes? What can I do today? And we have some tactical things, but ultimately, and not to discourage them, but we tell them it's about building relationships. So if you think about, just our interaction, just with our friends or everyday people, we're not likely to help someone if they're just asking us for favors. It's like, gosh, every time you need me, it's to use me for something. And we all have that, cousin or aunt or uncle who needs something all the time. Yeah. But it's like, can I be a resource first? So maybe I have to put in the time of a couple weeks, sometimes months beforehand, to maybe toss them some resources or some story ideas that have nothing to do with me, but they would find helpful before I go in with my ask. So just in my opinion, 2 critical do's would be to do your research, do your homework, and then to build relationship first.
I love that. Kind of piggybacking off the relationship aspect that Danny was talking about. I think it's also important to remember, do not bury the lead. And also be well-versed in what's happening. A lot of times I don't think people consider the fact that reporters, journalists in general, it's very day turn is what we call it. It's very news of the day type. So our brains can really be focused on so many different things that are happening, and instantly we could switch our story midday. So it's super helpful if there is a publicist or someone, you know, who's representing a client that understands that right now everybody's talking about female empowerment, or everyone's talking about something that's going on political, and they find a way to say, hey, I know that right now this is going on regionally in your area. Those are amazing, because you never know. We could already be looking for an expert. We could already be looking for a personal angle or something that we call as a national topic. We're trying to localize it. Hidden gems, if we find them, because it's sometimes difficult to find that. Sometimes we're having to scour through social media or a hashtag, but it's so helpful if someone is already kind of in the know of what's happening currently and can bring their client into the conversation in that way. It's genius.
That's good.
Right on. Oh my goodness, this is this is wonderful. Yeah, and I'd love to add, you know, as hearing you ladies talk, and like from my past experiences of working, you know, in PR for restaurant groups and for an alternative weekly newspaper, a do and a don't. I think a do is do stay close to your inbox and your DMs if you are in the middle of pitching stories and talking to reporters about whether it's something you've actively put out there to say, hey, I've got this going on if you're interested, or you're just someone who's well known locally who might be of interest to someone who's covering a topic, because time is of the essence. So if you get an email one day and you don't respond for 2 days, I mean, they're most likely that story's gone and it's been moved on. They've moved on to another topic or another expert. And then a don't is don't take it personally if your story just doesn't get picked up. It just might not be the right time. It just might not be the right fit. Like you were saying, Aubrey, things change all the time. I mean, it could be one page and then something happens and you're like, sorry, we've got to cover like this, you know, this other crazy thing that's going on right now.
Yeah,
that's good. Yeah, recently we just had a client who is a business coach for like top female execs. And recently, I want to say maybe 2 days ago, CNN did a story about how burnout is now classified as like an actual medical thing. And so immediately, since it's our job to kind of stay on point and to kind of be on the radar, immediately we called her and we were like, listen, do you think that you can give tips and advice to people on how to, you know, avoid burnout? And she was like, yeah, I can even give tips to employers on how to prevent burnout for your employees. I'm like, perfect. We pitched it. And currently we have 3 outlets interested. But to Aubrey's point about localizing things and also being super timely. And so she knows that she's got to kind of respond to our text quickly, and we've got to be available to the reporters' schedule to make that happen. But yeah, to Aubrey's point, that's a great tip. And we found that to be a productive way to kind of crack through as well.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is awesome. And I love that example, that it was a recent example. I saw an article in my Facebook feed yesterday about burnout. And I was just like, yeah, that's a thing. Yeah. You know, if you don't do anything about it, you'll just, you know, it'll continue to take you to a bad place.
Sure.
Right on. Awesome. Well, and I love that that like quick, nimble approach you have, Danielle, because, you know, that story is relevant here and now today. So getting that out as soon as possible to someone like Aubrey who might be interested in that as a topic is super important. Awesome. So so for both of you, what do you think makes a good story? You know, what do you like, what makes the stories, you know, the kind of thing where you hear it and you go, oh my gosh, yes.
I think kind of speaking to what Danielle said about being well-versed on what's happening, what's the conversation right now? Can you add substance to the dialogue? I think that makes a really good story. If it's something that's evergreen, that's not really about, you know, time of the essence type of angle, I think it has to be something that educates an audience or inspires them in some way or pulls out their heartstrings, that makes them think. Anything that kind of goes viral in some way, it's funny because it's evoking an emotion, or it's being shared because it's a scene of something that's crazy that's happening. So people want to feel like, I want to be a part of this dialogue. So I think a really good story is just something that evokes something, an emotion or a thought or a feeling or in some sort out of an audience.
That's really good. And I like that, what you're saying about dialogue. And you mentioned that word a couple of times, and that's important. And I guess that also kind of speaks to how news has changed, but like that dialogue, it's conversational, it's back and forth, there's this exchange. I mean, I agree with your tips. Those are perfect. I think that realizing it's not about you. So like if I'm speaking to an entrepreneur who's listening, realizing it's not about you. And I know that sometimes takes us aback at first, like, what are you talking about? But it's just like, just because you're having a sale or you want to brag about how cool you are, does that information serve anybody else? Because if not, that's not news. And I think in these days of like your brand and it's all about you, and on social we can post about ourselves, I think having to break that mentality and understand, okay, how can we fit you in to something, like Aubrey said, something that is inspiring or educational or serves the general audience in some way. So so I think a good story is one that serves the audience. And I love Aubrey's comment about is a part of a dialogue, a larger dialogue.
Yeah, love that. So do either of you watch sometimes Will Smith posts really amazing videos on his Facebook page?
Yeah.
He posted this one a while back about like surrounding yourself with people who fuel your fire. And I think that like there's two sides to that coin, you know, like you definitely don't want to surround yourself by people who are like, who don't think that you deserve the fire or don't want to help you fuel it, but you want to fuel other people's fire too. And when you started your business, you did it because you wanted to fuel other people, you know, so you have to like kind of put that hat on and be like, well, how can I like, I like what you had to say. I think it was Aubrey about serving others, or maybe it was you, Danielle. Either way, very helpful insight of like, what would resonate with you? And like, you know, you want to make sure it's going to resonate with other people as well. Very helpful. Awesome. So I want to ask the next question. And then, so I've done this one other time on a Facebook Live. I let my computer battery get down too low. And now I'm going to ask the question, and then I'm going to walk away and get my computer cord, and I'll be right back. But the question is, so I'll let you ladies answer. So let's talk about like, what should a pitch include? What should it not include? Like, what do you think makes a perfect pitch? You know, like how much information is just enough? Like what assets should be included? You know, like what are your thoughts on that?
I think on the receiving end, the more detail, the better. And that's just because if you don't leave any room for question, whether it's coming from me or maybe my producers or something like that, it's just better in the end, because then we can kind of visualize the pitch, since it's a visual medium. You don't have to think, okay, well, who's our person of interest? Who's our expert? Who's going to be, you know, the person that really brings the story in emotionally? If we don't have to figure that out while reading your pitch, it's better. And it actually kind of puts you at the top of the list, especially with the millions of emails that we get, because you're already kind of giving us insight on the topic, but then you're also helping us visually paint the picture before we have to go out and shoot it and edit and all that.
Gotcha.
Let me ask you this. You said to make sure it's detailed, but do you mean like detailed and concise, or do you like it when it's detailed, the leads up top, but the details come afterwards? So in terms of like length, because I know that what I share with others, but I want to make sure I'm on point and check in and make sure I'm like up to date with the latest preferences. But do you mean detailed just like has all the basic who, what, where, when, or do you mean detail like?
Yeah, I think, and I'll use the example of your expert who can talk about burnout, because that was recent and everyone's still talking about that. If you're able to have in the headline or in the topic or subject topic that we're talking about, you know, burnout, and it's in regards to CNN, and then that's going to grab my attention because I've already probably seen it on my feed anyway.
Right.
And then you just let me know who your expert is, what she can talk about, how soon is she available? Because half the time, if I'm reading your pitch, I'm thinking, okay, can I get to her in an hour, or vice versa? And then, or if it's a digital thing, how quick can she hop on a Facebook Live with me or an Instagram Live? I mean, digital outlets want you even quicker than a traditional outlet. Sometimes it could be roles reversed. But I think it being concise and the great thing about the skills being interchangeable, whether you're coming from broadcast or PR, you already know what the other needs. So you can already say, okay, I know that she needs the who, what, when, where, why, and she wants to know, a little bit about. You can maybe just put a link about for your expert. Let me just take the time to go and look and see. You don't have to put her whole life story on the side or nothing. Right. Just what can she do? What can she talk about? When is she available?
Right. That's good. Yeah.
I love the when is she available aspect of it. And then maybe also like including like full contact info, like phone number, email, because like if you're looking to talk to someone in an hour, a text might be most appropriate or, what have you. Awesome. Yeah. Let's see. So we talked a little bit about like, what should the pitch include? Is there, what's like, I would love to kind of talk, Aubrey, like what are some of like the wildest pitches you get? Like what comes to mind when you're like, oh my gosh, like I've, not to like drag anybody or anything. We don't have to get specific. I just want to hear about like, what have people done that was just like so not helpful that you would encourage other people to not do?
I want to go back to what Danny said, to kind of do your research, because if you're wanting to pitch something that deals with maybe political topics, or if you're wanting to pitch something that's maybe dealing with like the sciences or anything like that, and my focus is like trending social media or lifestyle or something to that effect, I'm probably not the best person. I mean, unless you can connect it to my beat, unless you can connect it to my interests when it comes to news coverage, then I can't really help you. So, and it's horrible because you could have presented that pitch to someone who is looking for that type of topic or looking for an expert. So I think it really goes back to research, identifying your brand, the audience, and finding out the best person to trust with telling that story and trusting them to deliver the message.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right on. Awesome. Yeah, that's super helpful. I liked how you said like your the reporter's beat, and brand, because like as a business owner, it's like, well, you wouldn't have me talk about modern dance. That's not my expertise, So like you probably shouldn't pitch, I probably wouldn't pitch you a story about, I don't know, maybe modern dance, because that's not your beat, Aubrey. Right on.
Yeah.
How about you, Danielle? Like what's like some kind of wild you've had to tame as far as like people who have story ideas about, that they want to share, by way of working with a reporter, but just like that you needed to like do some work.
Right. I guess kind of what I said earlier about pitches that are really self-serving. So very braggadocious about accomplishments they've made, or a common one is like, oh, they want to announce a promotion or a shift in their companies, whatever, and having to help them see that that's not interesting. I mean, I can't fluff it or like water it down. I'm like, okay, that's not interesting, or like there's a sale or something that's promotional, and having to walk them through like why that is not maybe very interesting. Something else that's kind of a pet peeve of mine in working with clients, but we're getting better with, is sometimes they are very rigid. And so we'll present them some angles and say, listen, this is what's happening. So how can you tie that to what this is happening or whatever, but they don't want to budge. And they're saying, oh, well, I mean, I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about this. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine, is helping them see like, okay, you gotta work with me. You gotta be flexible. Another is not being flexible with regard to maybe adapting to what the journalist wants to do. So sometimes we've had journalists who show interest, we get all excited. And then when we report the information, okay, they want to meet Thursday at this, and they want to cover this, and just have you have a little quote, not being satisfied with just the quote.
Yeah.
They want the whole feature, and helping them see, oh my gosh, if this airs like 2 times and they print your name and the name of your boutique, that is a win. But them not being satisfied because they want more airtime or they want to tell their life story. That's kind of a pet peeve of mine too. But I guess that goes back to it's serving the general public, and this whole segment can't be about you. But man, that's great that they let you talk for 6 seconds.
Yeah,
I'm glad Danny said that, because I think especially with the digital landscape and just the rise of the influencer and digital space, I think quality over quantity at this point, because there could be, like you said, if there is an opportunity where we're talking about a broader discussion, but we include your client and they are able to speak to a topic as an expert because they're a boutique owner or because they know about the career landscape and burnout and all of that. We've now put you in a space where you are an expert in that topic. And it's just a really good dynamic. It may not be a full minute 30, but also people's attention spans are getting smaller. So we're having to adjust as well. So there's so many different factors. And I think even with brands, we're seeing where it's no longer how many influencers can I get with 700,000 followers. Now it's like, but we see engagement with these smaller influencers. They're having real discussions. They're really having the influence. So it's kind of like you said, they want that minute 30 package. Brands want 700,000 followers. But if you get a VOSOT, or if I get you, in front of the audience of someone with 10,000 followers, you can have a stronger return on investment, or even just, opportunities to have your brand put out there by thinking, engagement versus numbers.
So true. So true.
Yeah.
Love that. And, to speak to what you were saying, Danielle, about, if someone gets really stuck on, well, this is specifically what I want to communicate, and this is the only thing I want to talk about. Well, there's good news, because you can jump on Facebook Live right now.
There's that
you can talk about that thing, or Instagram Live. You can write a blog about it. Like, there's so many different ways to really get specific if there's something like that you want to talk about. But if you want to reach beyond your audience, then you've got to change it up, and you've got to, adapt to that other audience. So, it's new, and just like any muscle, like the more you work it, the stronger it gets. So it's just a muscle that people have to get, used to.
I'm going to keep that phrase in my back pocket, because you're more diplomatic and delicate than I am. So you're like, well, there's good news. You could do a Facebook Live. And meanwhile, I'm like, that's not interesting. So I'm like, no, that's a good note.
Totally. It's like finding a way to say no, but yes.
Right. That's good.
No, this is not a good fit for Aubrey, but how about you do a Facebook Live about that this week?
Right. That's very nice. That's good.
For sure. Right on. So I want to talk a bit about, how should someone pitch? How should someone send their story idea? Like, should they send an email? Should they send a DM? Should they do both? I'm always relating things back to movies, but that movie, He's Just Not That Into You?
Yes.
It came out a decade ago. So Drew Barrymore's character is saying that she feels like she's getting rejected by 8 different methods of communication. It's snail mail, it's voicemail, all these places that she's not getting a call back on. But so I just kind of want to talk about how much is too much communication? Where should someone communicate with you on?
She can kind of speak to that.
Okay, so I'll tell you what I advise other people to do, and then what I do, and then Aubrey can tell us what we really all should be doing. But I advise people to email, just because I know it's quick and we can kind of filter through, Personally, I email, and I'm on Twitter all day. I used to not be on Twitter, but it's where there's a joke that's where all the Twitter, the journalists and writers and where they all live. And it just kind of makes sense, because it's so time sensitive and timely. And so if a journalist is trying to see what's going on, you hop on Twitter. So personally, I'm there. I have DM'd reporters, but like I said, I lay the groundwork first. So it's not like I'm a rando. So I've been engaging with their content and sending resources for weeks, maybe months before I even slide in there to say hey, would this be interesting? So that's just my method. Aubrey, you can tell me if this is awful. One time when we were really desperate to land a particular outlet that was difficult to crack, I called, and I normally tell people you do not call, but then I was kind of doing the whole well, if no one's calling, then, it's wide open. And I called, and it actually worked. But I think that was just a sweet spot of, I even started by saying hey, I have a story idea. Do you have 90 seconds? And just to let them know, yes, it's a pitch. I'm going to make it quick. And it actually worked. But but that's something that I've only done maybe like 1 or 2 times. So I would say email, Twitter, and I think the whole thing of just like with dating or anything else, I think after you throw it out there, if they don't respond, I think 1 follow-up at the max. After that, the answer is no. Obviously, they're not responding. But that's just how Danielle operates. I don't know, Aubrey, what you prefer. And I know every person's different too. Some prefer email, some like Twitter. What are your thoughts, Aubrey?
I think a lot of it also depends on the reporter and then also the platform, because like you said, if you're wanting to pitch to BuzzFeed or someone like or anything digital, and I mean, a lot of us, we are all on Twitter because a lot of the times we can kind of gauge what is trending or what is about to be the trending topic by looking at the discussion on Twitter. And that is actually where a lot of the viral videos, they'll either start there or Snapchat or something before they even progress over to Facebook and Instagram. So you kind of have to be pretty active on those social media channels. It's not a bad idea to send a tweet or to DM, especially if that person works in the digital space. That's their language. That's where you're going to find them. So I'm sure you probably get a really good response with that. Email is great for someone who's on the more traditional route, and that's just because that's where we expect to see everything. And we're kind of looking through our emails on our way to work or while we're at a meeting or something like that. That's just how it is. Yeah. Calling isn't bad. I think what you did by thinking boldly and saying, well, if no one's calling, I'm going to call. It's kind of like you said, you're going to shoot your shot. You decided to call, and you have no clue how that person's day was going. They probably had 3 stories already. Through the last girl, anything, or the conversation has shifted. Now we're talking about Cardi or something. And luckily you call and Cardi's cousin, right? So it just works out awesome. It's really about like timing, and your boldness paid off. So it's not really a lot of rules to it. You kind of have to kind of feel, like you said, that relationship and say, okay, does this seem like it will be good for my client?
Right. Now, what is your preference? Are you on social and you prefer the messages, or do you just want like the standard emails so you can get back to it whenever?
I kind of like both. Email is totally fine just because that's what I'm looking through. But a lot of times I will get great story ideas, and it won't even really be in the traditional landscape emails or anything like that, or DMs. It can be in casual conversation. I literally went to the Bomb Avenue Market the other day and ended up taking cool pictures because everybody and their mama takes them on that cool wall. And I was like, I want a picture here. And this girl comes up to me. She's just kind of telling me about, our startup that she's doing and all of that. And I love covering all the cool things that are coming to Tampa Bay because it's growing So it's just casual conversation. And I love being able to be a part of storytelling that is informative. So yes, I might be able to tell you, okay, great, Tampa Bay is growing, but do you know about this person? And the only way you're really going to get those leads is if you are engaging in conversation with someone that knows someone else. So it could be either way, but I just love being in certain spaces where you can just randomly connect. Or if we're all 3 getting coffee and we're talking about or you're telling me about your friend or something like that. I'm thinking, man, that would be such a cool story. Or has anyone thought about? It's just so organic, and it's really beautiful when it comes together, and it's exciting, I think.
I love that.
Good.
Yeah, and I'm really grateful for how our conversation today has gone. It's about like PR and news, it's storytelling, it's conversation, it's relationships, it's people, it's human, and if you can be a human being, you're going to have a lot more success as far as like getting your emails opened, having people actually consider your stories, and seeing the person on the other end as a human being as well. Like reporters are not just like this one-minded hive. They're all different, and they have different interests too. So very cool. I so appreciate all of the insights shared so far.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. And it's kind of funny that you brought up the Bomb Avenue Market, because I had shared a post earlier today, and the photo that I pulled from your Facebook page is you at the Bomb Avenue Market. Hyper local. So let's talk about following up. No one likes to be left unread. So what do you think is the best practices as far as following up to, an email that was sent, or, a DM, what have you, however you have reached out to that person that you're looking to, work with?
I think Aubrey might be the best to speak to that since she's the one who receives them. I can just say that my personal practice and the way I advise others who are trying to get publicity is that one time I think is okay, after a period of time where the person has probably had time to read it and to kind of marinate on it. So, for example, it would not be advisable to send it and then 2 hours later, hi, did you get my email? That's probably, a major turnoff.
That would send off like an alarm bell. Be like, you know what? I did.
Right. Right. Especially because, and I saw a little debate about this too, on Twitter between journalists and PR people, but the whole idea of the follow-up in general, do you or don't you? Does it turn them off? Does it not? To follow up and say like, hey, did you get my email? Do some appreciate it? Do they not? And some PR people were like, well, it would be nice if you just sent an email that was like, hey, I got it. Thank you. I'll get back to you. And I like that too. It feels good. But then I do know that if they had to do that 30 times a day, like they don't owe you that. So just assume they got it and just wait a reasonable amount of time, maybe do one follow-up, and that is it. That's how I would advise. But Aubrey, I don't know what you prefer, what you would suggest.
I love that. You'll have to tag me in that thread because I'm sure like being able to read that will be super insightful. Yeah, you'll have to read that. I think one follow-up is good. I can't speak for everyone. I know for me that if I get a pitch email and maybe I don't respond in that moment or some time has passed, I have a separate folder. I will save that there because there's always going to be a chance that something comes up or the topic comes around, or it's just the news of the day. And I might think, oh, Danny sent me something, blah, 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 blah. And it's just kind of having that resource there. I may not be able to use your pitch right now today, but for me, a no is not a closed door. It's just not right now.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that, because you just never know what's going on in someone's day. So one follow-up just to say, hey, just wanted to make sure you got this. If it's a good fit, let me know. Thank you for your time, and then letting it be, because it could be that it's not a good fit and they just don't have the time to let you know that, or it just might not be the right time. But, if they just got busy, that follow-up might help bring that helpful story that they actually can follow up with, to the top of their inbox. So, yeah. And then, like we were saying earlier, like, don't take it personally, keep moving forward. And then, hopefully you'll find another opportunity in the future to reach back out, or like, your saved folder, Aubrey. Like, that's really cool that you do that.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So I think a really great way to kind of round out this conversation today is about, what to do when your story does get picked up. I think that there's a lot of preparation and consideration it takes to send out a story idea, and include the necessary pieces and follow up. But if that reporter writes back to you or calls you and says like, hey, I want to cover this, like, what are your best tips on how to be ready?
We tell our clients to, we get their speaking points together, talking points together. Typically, especially if it's a positive story, there's not too much prep that goes into it, because at that time, it's the client's time to shine. So we did our part, and maybe we'll give you some tips right beforehand to kind of be camera ready and to feel confident. But, we pitched you as the expert. Now's your time to shine. You've got it from here. But we make sure that they have their talking points. We also help them understand that it's a very good chance all of it won't be used. So sometimes they'll just get to talking and run their background like, too much. Just say the part that you absolutely think is most important, so that if they have to cut, that part's good to go. We've even had, especially assuming the segment's not live or anything like that, we've had to explain to clients that if it helps to practice a little bit before, to maybe do that. And I say that because I'm assuming that back in the editing room, when they're trying to cut it down, if you're stumbling over your words a lot, it might be harder to use, even if you said something that was just a really good gem. But if you kind of stumbled and backtracked, it might not totally work. So even if it's like a quick 20-second blurb to make your point, can you say it very clearly without stumbling, without being muffled? Because that's at least a part that we can feel confident they're going to use. So I would say practice your quick little blurbs, the points you want to make. And then once they get placed and the feature runs, we have like a whole list of things they can do to kind of maximize their PR. Because I know sometimes with clients, they're like, get me placed. And then we do. And they're like, okay, what's the next one? And we're just like, oh, okay, let's talk about all
right.
So whether that's, obviously posting to social media, but maybe you can pin it to the top of your page for a while. Maybe you can include that video in the email to your subscribers and let them know you're getting traction. You can include that in your sales presentations, depending on your business, but letting know potential clients and customers know that you're getting coverage on TV and in magazines. So it's like, what are all the ways that you can maximize that exposure and leverage the credibility that you just received from that journalist, and getting creative with ways that you can kind of keep that going as long as possible.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Hallelujah to that. I feel like we could do an entire Facebook Live about, okay, great, you were featured. Here's what to do with it. Like, you don't share it once and like wash your hands of it. Like that is a badge of honor. Like wear it proudly.
I told you this before, but girl, you are the repurposing content queen. You will use something 50 different ways, but somehow the way you do it, it just feels fresh every time. So yeah.
Thank you. Well, I know that both of you have noticed, like, your audience doesn't see everything you share, and even if they saw it, maybe they forgot about it, so if you can take that, like, let's say, for example, you were featured in a digital article, maybe the next time you share it on Facebook or Instagram, like, change the caption, change up how you're talking about it, and then that, like you were saying, Danielle, that makes it fresh again.
Right.
Awesome. Yeah. What are your thoughts, Aubrey?
Yeah, I like that Danny had said, she wants to prep her clients and give them talking points. And like you said, because there's a good chance we're going to have to edit the soundbite. It just can't go long because it has to be concise and people's attention spans. Yeah. I think it's good to give them talking points and kind of prep them, but it's so beautiful when you're able to talk to a subject and they're just very conversational. And that's also because, and I know some people might go back and forth about that because conversational dialogue might be a little bit tougher to edit. But for me, in the storytelling style that I have, if I'm going to talk to you about why you opened your business, I don't want you to just say, well, I went to Yale and I studied da-da-da-da. I want you to say something more along, I've always wanted to do this and I'm really passionate about, and I love this, and I find joy in. People can connect to that better as opposed to, you just kind of singling in on your accomplishments. It's good to include that in some way, which is why talking points are helpful. You'll know what you're going into the interview prepared to talk about, but don't lose yourself in the preparation.
That's good.
Show up as yourself when we talk, but don't get so fixated, because I'll see that I'll lose people in the interview if they show up just ready to talk about their 5 bullet points. And it takes away from the story. And now I have to sit here and let you go through it. And if I have time, I'll sometimes do that. I'll first start off if we're talking while I'm setting up my camera or something, and I notice you have a dog on your shirt. Do you like dogs? Oh, that's so cool. Da-da-da-da. Now broke the ice. You're a little more comfortable. You got to get through your talking points. Okay, now we went through that. So tell me about, last summer, what did you do? And da-da-da-da. That's just some things you see from people who get fixated on talking points. And you might not really know that as if you're representing a client, because when the camera goes up, I feel like what you see, Danny, versus what I see changes. Because that camera will have you people show up and show out. So I just like to remind people to just be yourself, whether you're self-representing or you have someone representing you. Remember your talking points, but remember to be yourself, especially.
That's really good advice. I'm going to start incorporating that in our prep to let them know, like, have your points, and we can anticipate all day long. They're probably going to ask you about how you got started and what's your favorite part about the business, but reminding them at the end of the day, just be yourself. So that's good advice.
Absolutely.
I love that. You know, and it's like a combination of, I mean, you want to rehearse in such a way so that you're prepared to talk about these things, because being on camera or like talking to someone that you don't have like a really deep relationship with is awkward and can feel really unnatural.
Yeah.
So you want to just be ready to talk and share about, you know, kind of like identify your bullet points and then be able to talk around them so that you're giving your reporter enough to work with. And then also like staying true to what it is they're like, why they even want to talk to you in the first place. You know, like Danielle, you always say that you and your co-founder work to get like business owners the shine they deserve. Like, this is your time to shine. The sun is going to set fast. Like this, we don't have all day. Like, so they are here to talk to you about this. So like, you know, like you're saying, Aubrey, like, so show up. You know, show up as that person and be ready to talk and share. And, you know, like resonate with people, like, you know, showing your passion and your expertise, because that's what you bring to the table. And that's what people want to see and hear about.
Yeah. Yes, so true.
Right on. Well, you ladies are amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I know we have shared a ton of amazing insight for business owners to kind of like work through and kind of chew on, so that when they are ready to, you know, maybe talk to some porters and reporters and build some relationships, or maybe work with a publicist, like they've got some more, you know, insight they can use to just, you know, move forward with the right foot forward. Yeah. Thank you. Awesome. Have a great day. And thank you so very much. I'm going to be dropping contact info for both of these ladies in the comments once we're done shooting. And I so appreciate your time.
Yes. Thank you. Nice to see you.
Bye.
Bye, ladies. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Stay boss.
Bye.